All right, check. Daily trading recap for Monday, the 11th of October, 2021 here. Coming in with a little late night daily trading recap. I had some stuff earlier today, so we were pumping this out at 9 p.m. on Mountain Standard Time, of course. Getting hot in the action there. Spied a little bit of a update in the morning and then pulled back hard kind of in the afternoon session. Looking like it's a little dumpy here, more so in the after hours. Pretty abysmal dollar volume. Just to go over some more housekeeping before we get over the trade today. NASDAQ $120 billion volume. That's insanely low. Nice to see $185 billion. Pretty insane to see it under $200 billion, and OTC's $1.8 billion volume. Pretty weird to see. We have Bitcoin moving a little bit today, touching 57K, tapping around 56. I was insanely shocked to come to the market today and see that I had $35 left to trade in my cash account. I thought I had, cleared, I had a day wait or whatever. I thought I had cash to trade today, whatever. So just adjusted to it. I knew I had at least 2 day trades in my other margin account, and I really was just focusing on it. I think I would have to save one tomorrow too. So I just ended up using 1 day trade today on HNRG. Yeah, HNRG, not HRNG. So dyslexic. But that, yeah, just adjusted to what was there, do whatever, go with it. Not that much of action from other moderators looking at other scanning software, the chat rooms out there. Not a lot pumping for their sake too. And even in the small cap recap today too, Monaco only traded 1 ticker, ATER. And I could say too, I found ATER and even CRVS too, kind of the same boat, and maybe even a lot of other tickers that, if you were watching them hard and if you had nothing else going on and you look at the charts, pull them up today, I think you could totally see the plan and identify them like Monaco did too, and say there's an opportunity there if you're trading a big position size, of course, too, if it's not the most volatile for us under PDTers. But that's kind of just what it was today, a little bit in my book. I certainly found a lot more opportunities, and that's how I felt kind of just handcuffed with this 1 day trade that I was holding myself to, that I knew I wanted to be in a lot more opportunities, but just kind of kept my focus to this 1 ticker. Took it all in stride and did pretty well with that too. But yeah, to mention back to it, I kind of feel like that was the main focus, or that's what it was kind of leading to today, with that far lower dollar volume on the day around the market. That kind of just like slow grinders, having to have a hard set plan or reading far into the charts to try and pick a pattern there was the type of action you had to go for today too. So that is all I want to do for the introduction. Let's get into it. Keep it nice and brief so we can get to sleepies for the market tomorrow. HNRG, pretty nice little, just over 5% little trade for me on the downside on this one. This is not the most volatile mover. It's not the most low floater. It's 23 million floater. Not the highest floater, of course, which not the lowest floater that we want to see for shorting, but of course not extremely high float that makes us feel comfortable that it's not just going to go squeezy crazy action for what the price of the stock is. This was just a simple, multi-day run-up, first red day type of pattern trade. I think it looks a little better. Let's close it off here. So yeah, coming off of that Friday day, this trade was really based off this overextension volume candle day. After this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 day run-up, it's been in a very long run-up around from that $2.2 level. Just kind of a sketchy company, no real news catalyst for this run-up in a sense too. My only thought is, not checking any Twitter pumps or any other chat pumps like that feature, but my only assumption is it can really be just a residual effect off of CEI for the kind of oil and gas sector energy type of play in that regard. So of course the CEI party is pretty much over the hype, at least to the upside for right now. So looking for that first red day trade, obviously basing a risk level off of that previous high, 458 level. Put in a nice opportunity right away in this pre-market with lackluster volume. Of course, I do not have a feel of what the characteristic of the stock is. And even looking back in this chart here, it shows it does not trade a lot or even very often in pre-market or after hours. So just taking that all in stride to say, hey, we're looking for that bleeding long panic today too. I know I'm gonna have to sit in for a bit of a longer trade. It's not just gonna happen right away. I just gotta wait for it to come, and certainly did my best to be as patient as I possibly could. And I was very tempted to get out at certain points here, but overall, this was a great little 5% trader on 200 shares total. I think that was pretty much perfect position size for me and what I want to be in, around $1,000, just under around there at that point. So getting average, starting in at pre-markets, getting, I think I started sizing in with like 50 shares here, getting maybe 25 shares at this one. I forget the exact one, but ultimately sizing into that final $200 or 200 share size total, getting nice entry points, looking for any morning spikes, of obviously maintaining that same risk level of the high of day four, or that previous high 458 for this run up. Holding myself to that, we get a nice peel off immediately after the first 2 minutes of market open, and then it comes back, actually reclaims another opportunity for me to get short in that regard. Pulls back under VWAP, holds there for a little more, and this one just the whole entire time, just not, because it was so, it's not so incredibly illiquid to trade at $7 million volume today. But it's just, sometimes at points, wide bid spreads, it's not like you could read hard into this one for what the level 2 was doing and say, oh, there's big bidders stepping up here, there's big bid size coming to the plate, but then it would just get taken out randomly at points. It's so not the most clean chart to read in that point. But I feel like I got incredibly great exits and entries with this one, even through that. So very proud of myself for this one all the way around of what this trade was and identifying the pattern beforehand, coming to the market, focused on this one trade and having it work out, and ended up being far better than I could have predicted. Came all the way down to 3.9 at that point for exit. I doubt I would have been holding all the way down there. I did not want to hold this thing for harder pull down, potentially pull this thing down to where it was originally trading. I was just looking for this one first red day, get that panicking long action to the downside and get the quick opportunity for the trade in that regard. So then, yeah, as we're still in this market hours, I'm still not convinced that the trade is fully there. I'm thinking it doesn't have to tank, it doesn't have to fall off the face of the earth, but just smartly covering where, my goal coming into this one after I get an average entry around 443-ish, around there, thinking, okay, looking for at least 4.2. We got to crack this low day here in the market hours, and then we got to crack that closing price from yesterday. This little range-ish here, 4.2, I think is certainly insights, at least for the starter position, to say I think it could go beyond there. So I want to lock in at profits at least at that 4.2 point. I think it could trace back to that point. So then we get that first action dip that actually cracks that low day, but then volume comes in a little bit. It pulls a little bit of a hesitation here at 4.25. So just cover off some shares. I knew I wasn't certainly not going to add, so I could start the process of getting out of the trade too and still be in what's considered a one-day trade through trade zero for covering. So covered right at that point as I thought I was going to turn back to the upside, just to save myself a little bit more of that mental capital too, and just ease myself back into the trade to say, hey, at least I'm locking in some amount of profits, even if it traces back up to break even, starts to test that risk level again. I know at least I'm taking a few shares off the table. So I think this was a 50 share takeoff. Maybe this was a 25 share takeoff. I'm not, I could go look back up, but too late for that. So then covered again, pretty nice exit for what I thought, what I was seeing the turn as. We get another little pullback after a kind of, VWAP attempt, and then pull back again, cover at 4.3 as I feel it's failing to break after that hard continuation there. We actually get another attempt to bust to the top side of VWAP. I was one ask takeaway away from exiting this trade. If this thing tapped any higher than that 4.43 point, I had my finger on the trigger. I was ready to cover everything because that was actually my entry price, and that was pretty much my conviction in the trade to say that, okay, some amount of bid support is coming in. Maybe potentially this thing does end up breaking that former low of day, but if that thing traces any amount of higher, I don't think it's going to have the hard panic or harder pull off today than it does at that point too. So I was finger on the trigger ready, and I'm so glad once again too that I didn't place that stop just directly kind of randomly above VWAP where everybody else and their grandma has their stops at that point too. So great just reading of the charts and being present in the trade there, non-exit, to let the trade continue to work out and be able to capture the final move that was going to come. So get that final stop move to 4.2 as it shoves through there, and then get the final exit off at 4.10 for I think 50 shares left or whatever I had left at that point. So great trade and that opportunity. And then just wanted to mention too that I wrote down of these crazy volume candles, these kind of twin towers that came out of nowhere. This one at 420 here, that would be 11:46 Eastern Standard Time. It was a 36K share print for this first one, and then randomly for that second one, it was just a huge block print that came in. It wasn't a specific a big share size print to get that big volume candle, but it was just a huge old block print that shoved through to create that big volume candle. just for reference of what that was and that one did. But yeah, awesome trade on that one. Really don't, yeah, you could tell me you could swing this one going into the next few days here as it's could pull back a little bit more. We had a great volume day to confirm that this was the first red day that was the good amount of panic that we want to see from longs that were still trying to chase this to the upside, knowing that the trend has now reversed or shifted at least a little bit. Yeah, I think it's off my watch list at least for now. That was my trade on the day. So just want to go over some other tickers that are looking at NAOV. I got to watch this one live in the pre-market and thinking, kind of hesitating, or at least getting in the motion of going through the motions of potentially getting short these if they do just want to quickly do that morning dump pattern that I've mentioned and traded before, where they have a nice little quick spike with news and then immediately reject at VWAP and just pull off hard back to that previous trading day close. But the borrow fees on this one were pretty high for what I wanted it to see, or kind of what my frame of reference is for these ones. And also that $2 level was also looming in that pre-market. Those whole dollar levels are always emotionally encouraging. And then just price action kept rising and rising and rising. And I knew, I could feel in my boots this one was going to go higher, especially in pre. And I knew, if I had cash to trade, I probably would have taken at least a little slice and it gotten maybe a little bit chasey. But I could feel there was potentially more upside in this one. And the name is familiar to me too. I know, yeah, this is a hard former runner. This thing could certainly have gone crazy. It's a crazy low float, 23 million float. So not too bad in that regard. But yeah, tough to sitting on the sidelines. And yeah, it's always the great adage too that you'd rather be sitting on the sidelines and be right than be in the trade and be wrong. So just always more data for the book and just great reformation for myself too, as I'm taking more winning trades that the other trades that I wanted to be in are also winners as well too. So don't try to get too cocky. Don't try to get too overly confident in these ones, thinking that I'm Midas touching these things. Everything is going to gold. But just keeping our head focused and identifying the patterns that do work and seeing what does work and understanding how our position size can work into that, how that works for our own personal trading style as well too. I think that's great progress being made going forward. PELT I also wanted to mention. Man, watching this one as well too. We're just holding this kind of, if we're looking at this from a more intraday perspective, we're holding that $8 level pretty decently. This one has had its kind of tumultuous nature for what it wants to do. You get that big green day on the 7th last week, and it's a little bit downtrodden, but this one is just a squeezer kind of randomness to the upside. And then I see it have it in the corner of my screen chart. I see it moving price nicely, starts smacking with volume to get to around 8.4, 8.5, and I'm going, I would absolutely smash this thing with buys if I had cash. And that would have just been a 1 minute quick scalp to the upside. And I potentially could have seen myself maybe getting a little greedy, thinking there was far more room to the upside with how it moved on that Thursday of last week. That must have been the 7th, yeah. But that was really the move. You can't get greedy with that one too, especially when it's, now I know it's that feeling of trying to get it as it's moving to the upside. I see green and I just want to buy. If you are right, just take it when you're right and don't turn that winner into a loser. Don't stick around too long to see yourself turn into the villain. And then just this ended up actually fading hard into the, not so hard, but just pulling back more to closer to that $8 level here at the close. So still kind of, it's not dead, but it'll just be interesting to watch going forward. If it just wants to continue to rinse and repeat, just have these little wave ridings, I'm not opposed to that. So that was PALT. EZFL I also wanted to mention. This one was Bowen's #1 watch this morning. It didn't even pop up on my scanner, but of course I had to pull it up, and it's got a decent little company. Like this, I don't normally ever look hard into what the company is, but it's an interesting little company concept. But just, yeah, not enough history for me. Just very choppy pre-market as well too. You could call this a dip and rip if you wanted to. You get a fake out under VWAP, but then builds and spikes to the upside of VWAP, if you want to call it that. Blah, blah, blah. But then you get this reversal here. You get the fake out of bringing shorts in as it cracks under VWAP with a decent amount of volume, and then the sharp reversal immediately to the upside, and actually forms a perfect little double top here from that pre-market high at 4.4, and then you've got the opportunity to get short here as it's pulling off of that, pretty much risking that easily, which is, it's hard for me to say that too, because I try to stick as far away from the most obvious stop levels and risk levels that are just easily apparent to everybody. But that was certainly an easy factor to play in today to maybe have been a little bit harder of a hold as a short if you're sizing in anywhere around this point and just having to hold for a longer or bigger percentage move in this little chop just under VWAP. And then he has these little fake out attempts too, but doesn't fully pull back harder, start creating new low days after those little fake out uptick attempts above VWAP, but eventually does end up caving and failing. So yeah, that was EZFL. USWS I wanted to look at next too. Had this one on watch as well. This is one, I just love this ticker for some reason. I always have that. This one just always seems to pop up on my radar at times too, and I just kind of have this affinity for it. You call it this level of this little base it's creating, kind of around 2-3-ish. You know, this line that I'm drawing here. This is even in 1 hour perspective, but a little bit harder to see on the daily to try and define that. But then again, this is just the sketchy craziness, not anything based on hard trade conviction, but it's just like I was seeing this one in the pre-market. I wanted it to pull back a little bit more and maybe hold closer to that kind of 2-4-ish level, so I could size in with a smaller swing position potentially for any amount of trade opportunity like this one, that it could just kind of have a random squeeze like this, and that was certainly trade there. You see this one actually pulling hard above VWAP nicely, bouncing off of VWAP. Huge volume comes in to slap this one for some reason, explosion of volume to the upside, and then just continuation after there to not insane percentage move again. And you know what my definition of insane is anymore, I couldn't really tell you, but as you know, it's certainly not blow your socks off, kiss your grandma insane volume, but that certainly was an explosion. The biggest volume candle on the day was that just crazy 1 minute and 10:24 right there. So yeah, tough one again to watch with no cash account to trade. That I'm trying to see those patterns, and you know, even if I did have the cash to trade, if I would have gotten this one, I doubt it. But, that was the thesis going on in my head as I was watching this one. And then last one before I get into the washes, PROG, little VWAP hold trade here. Chris mentioned this one as well, and of course this one popped up on the scanner. You get the morning perk, holds these levels well, actually dumps below VWAP, and then it holds VWAP again. Trade opportunity around here, you know, basing it around this little consolidation point as it's kind of building with volume. That's going into more of the lunch session, which is not the most optimum or volatile volume inducing time period for the market, but that move comes there. You get this nice perk if you're trading immediately at the high of day, 1.7 perfectly to high of 1.94. Great trade at that point. If you're even just going to scalp that or hold it for more, as it holds a little bit of a wider range too, even more of a VWAP hold that bounces off these perfect levels here. Not so incredibly perfect, but fairly perfect little bottoms here in support, and holds that range, and then offers actually another opportunity, another leg to the upside just before the close, breaking high day once again for a little percentage move to the upside. Great to see that these at least one VWAP hold style of trade has worked. It's hard for me to say when I've seen the last one of these patterns work out fairly well. Great volume day as well too for that one. So that'll certainly be on watch, especially with these little cupish technical levels here we had from the past 10 October 1st and October 4th, those big volume days. That one could get interesting, especially with how it's looking after hours here. So we will keep that one on watch. Also got Naked for a swing idea. This one's just kind of calling my name a little bit. It's not the most insane percentage move up day today, only 3% up day. But again, similar to USWS, just in the little slightest hint, I'm getting these little like basing vibes. It's not the most hard set or defined technical levels, but you can see the madness just a little bit of this line I draw here, maybe like a 6, call it a 6.3. Let's do, right around this area. Of just how many times over and over again this technical level, for some reason around 60 cents, has just acted as resistance, broken above as support here, breaks to the downside, again resistance here, resistance holds, break to the upside, resistance, break to the downside, break through upside of, resistance, holds for support a little bit, breaks below it, breaks to the upside of resistance again, now acting as a little bit of support. I think that 60 cent level has some amount of inflection to it, and it was very tempting for me today, even with the $35 in cash I did have to trade to, as it was kind of holding decently well-ish. Again, it's just choppy price action, not hard pushings of having to, like, you forcing you to be in this trade today. None of that for me today in that sense, but just tempting to see, okay, it's holding VWAP decently. We're getting little perks, especially in the close here. Could do something. This pre-market is just, yeah, whatever. It spikes, curls. It just shows it can be volatile for me in that sense. But golly, I think it could do something. That could be kind of interesting if it starts to build up more volume. This former runner could do some crazy things, especially in one of these winter months. OCGN, also another one. Just kind of going crazy after hours here. See what it do. That former runner, once again. How low is the float on this one? Just to double check for myself. American Biotech, insanely high float. So how it has this price action, no one knows, but it's that former runner. I think this was also former OTC as well. OCGN. Sounds familiar, like it was an OTC. I'll have to look into that. But then also WWR. 100% in my book, a good short opportunity. If this easy risk level of 4.4, you get the spike off of news of something on there. Board director approves construction of phase 1 graphite project. Okay, great, whatever. $202 million project. Expected to begin before the end of 2021. Okay, that's great. Another news article here. That provides results from study for graphite. Great, yeah, dude, whatever. Float of 31 million. It's an Amex, Scamex stock. You know they're just going to try to pump this thing however much they can, just get as much press release out there. And these, I feel like these patterns just play out over and over again. You get nice little volume days on this one, just perk immediately after the close with this scheduled press release. And then that next day, there's just a lack of volume coming in on that pre-market. And it's just a lower bleeding, slow fade back down fairly close to where that previous trading day close was, or wherever it normally like to trade around that point too. It doesn't have to happen that way too, but that's just what I feel has happened significantly similar to HNRG. Of course, not the same pattern, but just that type of speed for the action that may happen on this one. So that one is a definite watch for me tomorrow to the short side. And that is pretty much it. Thank you guys for watching. We will get to bed as soon as we possibly can here with this late night daily trading recap. I sincerely thank you guys for watching. Another green day in the books. Certainly happy about that. And again, like I mentioned, just with the patterns I'm seeing and the small strides we're taking, just keeping our head as level as we possibly can. Not too high, not too low in anything. Continuing to grind it out every single day. And extremely thankful, grateful, and blessed. We will catch you guys on the next one.